In this video, I want to talk about a portfolio structure that is quite dated, but I think is probably the simplest and easy to follow that I've ever seen. It's called the permanent portfolio. The reason I want to talk about that today is because for the most part I've forgotten about it. It's been around for a long time, but not something I follow per se. But with the recent activity in the increase in gold and interest rates being cut and the sort of activity and performance of longer term bonds, I've thought about this portfolio and decided to do a little bit of testing to see how it has stood up, specifically over this very long and very hated bull market in the equity market. So I want to get into that in this video today. If you are new to my channel, my name is Jared Ayers. I'm a CFA charter holder. I've created this channel to share with anyone who's interested the ideas, concepts, thoughts, and strategies I use to invest my own money. My topics are fairly varied, like this one, but of course if there's anything that you want me to cover on a go-forward basis, please leave those in the comments. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic and the permanent portfolio. So as mentioned, I want to take you through an introductory look at the permanent portfolio. I will be following up this video with a more mechanical video as to how to construct your own permanent portfolio and manage it. So in this video, I just want to kind of cover the main concepts of the permanent portfolio and just talk a little bit about how it's performed in the most recent period. So here it is. It looks really complicated, I'm sure. It's, like I said, it's one of the most simplistic, easy to follow portfolios I think I've ever seen. So it literally is 25% in each of 4 asset classes: equities, bonds, gold, and cash. It is not any more or less complicated than that. The only thing it requires is rebalancing into those 4 quadrants on a periodic basis. So pretty simple. So just to give some background on this portfolio, like I said, created by Harry Brown in the 1980s. I'll link to him and articles you can find about him if you want to read up more on that. His objective when he created this portfolio was not to just preserve capital, but also to increase the real purchasing power of that capital over time. The main concepts or the reasons he uses the 4 asset classes he has are really that stocks rise in value as the economy recovers or improves, bonds rise in value as interest rates fall, gold rises in value when inflation is rising, and cash rises in value during times of deflation and provides liquidity in a portfolio. So the idea is that there's an asset class in the portfolio to a significant percentage to cover the 4 kind of all seasons of the economy. No matter what's going on, there's something rising in the portfolio to offset any losses in the other asset classes. These asset classes are generally fairly uncorrelated or negatively correlated, which works well in certain times, and we'll go through kind of what those look like here as well. So just a more in-depth look at each one of these. As I said, cash rises in value during times of deflation. It does also provide portfolio liquidity, and in an inflationary environment, of course, it does lose real value, but does earn some income, arguably not very much in this low interest rate environment in which we currently live, but there is a little bit there. Gold rises in value as when inflation is rising. Deflationary, kind of the opposite performance. It does provide negative correlation to bonds, however, in the long run, but of course it does not provide income and does not have an intrinsic value. An intrinsic value, by my definition, meaning sort of a present value of future cash flows. It doesn't provide any cash flows, and its value is really completely dependent on people's view of gold and the value they personally give it. Equities, rise in value as the economy recovers or improves. It does, they do have an intrinsic value, and they can provide income. So that's the other thing with equities, obviously, is that there's a business there that does produce an income stream, and of course if it pays dividends, all the better. You get paid to wait. Bonds, of course, rise in value as interest rates fall. In an inflationary environment, they do very poorly. Deflationary environment, they do very well. They can provide income. Well, basically they do provide income, otherwise why would you do that? Unless of course it's a zero coupon bond, but those aren't very common. And they do provide, of course, negative correlation to gold in the long run, which is the opposite that gold has. So those two kind of have an opposite effect to each other, which can be a good thing. So like I said, I did do a little bit of digging myself, into some data, just quickly pulled this together. So this basically covers the period October 2009 until October 2019, so basically the last 10-year period here. Of course, we know in October 2009 the equity market was well on its way to recovery. So in my mind, I thought, well, it's an interesting time period to look at, because we've never seen a long, well, in my lifetime, never seen a longer, bigger increasing bull market than this one. So it would sort of, in my mind, I was thinking, it would not be necessarily a very good portfolio to have or to manage over that period, simply because you'd be losing out on all the gains of the equity market. As you can see, that blue line there being represented by the S&P 500 ETF SPY, climbing from $10,000 as initial investment all the way up to over $35,000 over that 10-year period. Long-term bonds, TLT, being the ETF that represents long or long duration U.S. Treasuries, 20 years plus. Orange line there, it kind of goes up and down, with interest rates, and a few other things. In the most recent time, it has been popping up only because interest rates have been cut, so it usually reacts to that. Gold, the gray line, GLD being the ETF that would comprise that, a lot of up and down, has actually dipped below the initial investment of $10,000, but recently has popped up, like I said, which is one of the reasons I wanted to look at this portfolio. Money markets, pretty flat as expected, and then of course the permanent portfolio being that green line that runs right through kind of everything. Really stable, not really volatile at all, visually, and is of course the next highest performing at this point in time anyway, compared to the equities, rising to just over $20,000 over a 10-year period. So not a fabulous return, but if you're looking to kind of put some shock absorbers in there for volatility, then it obviously did the job very well. So looking at individual performance of each of these pieces, October 2009 to October 2019, annualized returns, equities represented by the S&P 500 up 13.6% per year, bonds 6.8%, gold 3.2%, cash 1%, and permanent portfolio at 7.2%. So again, only 7.2%, not that great. I could have, gone out and got 13.6% had I stuck my money just purely in equities. Yeah, of course you could have. But then in October of 2009, did you know we were going to have this kind of a bull run? Did you know that 10 years after that point, the S&P 500 was going to be, more than a triple, that it would be over 3,000? I certainly didn't. It's certainly, thinking back to that time, there was still a lot of fear out there, and if someone came to you and said, well, I can offer you something that's going to give you 7.2% and pretty much cushion you from any volatility you might feel through that time period, I'd probably say, at the time, I probably would have gone for that over the equity portfolio. in comparison, calendar 2008, equities down 40%. So that's January 1st, 2008 to January 1st, 2009. In that same period, the permanent portfolio was down 1%. So just think about that for a moment. Could you, in your current state of life, whether you're retired, whether you're pre-retired, whether you're earlier in your life but maybe have a family, whether you need to draw on that money at some point, could you stomach a 40% drawdown and continue on without worrying about anything? I don't know many people that can, versus the permanent portfolio with the big decrease in equities offsetting a big increase in the bonds and gold during that period, basically created almost a zero loss environment. So I don't know, if I had gone through that year and saw my portfolio down 1%, I think I would have been pretty happy. And if I take that equity return at 13.6%, if I take that back to January 2008 until October 2019, equities had a return of 9%. So you get a 9% return with up to a 40% drawdown versus 7.2% and a 1% drawdown. That tells me something. Depending of course on your situation, that's actually not a bad, that's not bad at all, in my opinion, to have that kind of return, that little volatility versus sticking your money in equities. And as we go forward here with the constant talk of recessions, what do you want to be in? Are you certain the equities are going to continue to go higher? I, for one, am not. I've demonstrated how I structure my portfolio. Mine's probably a little bit more complicated, and we'll get into the mechanics and how we look at this in my next video. But to me, it's not a bad trade-off. So, of course, you have to make your own decisions. And if you don't want to let somebody else manage your money, if you want to do it yourself, this is a very cheap and easy way of doing it. So, so not sure what your approach is from your portfolio structure perspective, but here's one option that is really easy and available to everyone. So hope that helps you. So I hope you got something out of that video. For me, it was just interesting to take another look at this portfolio and see what it had done over that time period. To me, that trade-off of returns versus volatility actually was quite impressive. I wasn't expecting to see that, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to share it. If you do use this portfolio or have other similar approaches to risk management and reduction of volatility in your own portfolio, by all means let me know in the comments. If you like the video, do give me a thumbs up, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel but would like to see similar content in the future, then by all means please hit the subscribe button. Until next time, thank you very much for watching.